edition of the We Are Ready podcast. As always, we are sponsored by Flagship. If you don't know about Flagship, I would fix that. Flagship is a very cool multi-chain crypto project that not only is multi-chain, but it also serves multi-purposes. Um, f- to begin with, if you go back and you think about your entrance into crypto, or if you're just kind of learning right now, how difficult it is to stay on top of all of the developments, and Flagship makes that easy for you in several ways. For one, I am the captain of the Stacks outpost for Flagship, and what that means is I keep my eye on the Stacks ecosystem, and I update the community via Discord, via writing in the outposts, and it's not, they just don't have Stacks. They also have Cardano, Cosmos, Avalanche. Um, all of these different captains are doing just what I'm doing. They're scouring their ecosystems. They're bringing the community the latest news, and in addition to the education and the news and the market research and all of these things that are can be quite difficult for people who want crypto exposure to have without just being all in crypto 24/7. Um, Flagship is a DAO. Flagship has financial products, the called baskets. Think of it as a crypto ETF almost, right? So you can, with one single transaction, get exposure to all sorts of different assets. So if you have not checked out Flagship yet, you should, even if it's just to read my stuff. Check out Flagship. We thank them for their sponsorship, and we have a great show today. So without further ado, let's introduce the guest.
Great intro.
Awesome.
Yeah, I love that introduction.
Jack, you frozen, or is that just me?
Yeah, frozen for me too.
All right. There we go. Can y'all hear me?
Yep.
There you go, yeah.
Awesome. So welcome to the show, everybody. This is a special edition. Like I said before, it actually came up because of a tweet that was made earlier in the week, and it caught my attention. It caught a few other people's attention. So like, you know what? Let's go ahead and do a show about this. If we can go ahead and real quick, I'm gonna let you all introduce yourselves. Let's go ahead and start with Gary. And Gary, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do in the Stacks ecosystem and what you got going on?
Thank you. Really appreciate this, and you and everyone else here. It's good to see some faces, and I think we spoke, but we never did a video call, so it's good. I've been passionate about Bitcoin since like late 2016. Try to figure out how to get in. Found Stacks early because, you want to write smart contracts on Bitcoin. There's not many places to go. And, we've been building Haylayer ever since. We were in the Stacks Accelerator in the first one. And Haylayer has sort of changed as we started to understand the dynamics of Bitcoin and the communities. But we want to become a home for Bitcoin, for Bitcoiners, so that they can go in and sort of take the next step in Bitcoin. So what that means is featuring creators, featuring news, letting them take lessons. And so it's really a way to learn, build, and scale a business on Bitcoin. So we have our own marketplace. We try to keep it simple, and our job is to promote Bitcoin and help Bitcoiners take it to the next level, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Cool. Jim, why don't you go next, Jim? give us a little background and tell us a little bit about this is number one.
Sorry, I muted myself there. Yeah, sure. So we this is number one. I guess we were founded in early 2021. I've been me and my co-founder Dashel. We imported one of the first Bitcoin ATMs into the UK in 2014. It was the first two-way machine, so that was our fast track into crypto. We're both work in the music industry. I'm a musician, producer, and Dashel was a A&R for a record label. That's how we met. And so it's been a long journey, but we discovered Stacks in actually Blockstack probably around 2017 through Mike Cohen, who's one of the core developers. We met him through the ATM, and he introduced us to the idea of smart contracts on Bitcoin prior to really having experienced much with Ethereum. So I think by the time the Ethereum hype really hit, we were already the seed had been sown that this was something that was possible on Bitcoin, and therefore probably worth waiting for. So we started really in 2017, sort of focusing on. We did a thing called app mining with Blockstack. There were a few just different ideas we were working on, but nothing really solidified until 2021, when the mainnet went live, and we realized everything was actually working as we thought it was. And so we set about creating some of the first NFTs. We got some big names on board to try and make a big noise for Stacks, but actually it was so early. Sometimes patience is the hardest thing to come by in this space, where it feels like
feel
a million miles an hour, but sometimes they don't.
You can feel too early, truthfully, and it does happen. And we also have, for our rounded out the panel, we have Omelet. And hey, man, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do and what you've been working on?
Hey, thanks for having me. Just want to say it's super cool being able to do this. I've never been on a podcast before, so it's a cool opportunity. My name's Alex, by the way. Cool. If you don't feel like calling me Omelet. So
love Omelet.
But I recently found about Stacks in February of this year, actually. And I found it because the Ordinals protocol. I wanted to create my own collection. And so I found Gamma, which kind of allowed you to display your own Ordinals. And that's how I found Stacks, because I found out that inscribing actually costs Bitcoin. And I'm a broke college student.
Yeah.
And Stacks is another way to have NFTs on Bitcoin, and it's a bit cheaper. So I created a collection called Stacks Satoshis, and they all represent Satoshi coins. If you want to think of Satoshis as being little coins, and the purpose of those is to eventually be inscribed onto Bitcoin as ordinal inscriptions. And I think it's just kind of a cool idea because since they represent Satoshi coins and they're being inscribed on Satoshis on Bitcoin, it's kind of like fusing the artistic and numismatic identities of the Satoshis. Other than that, I'm just here to learn about Stacks and Bitcoin in general. Trying to build my own app for my collection, just kind of have a good way to do that stuff. But yeah, cool. I've been involved with crypto since 2014, but didn't realize what Bitcoin was at the time. Thought it was some like sketchy internet money that wasn't anything, but
right.
So
that's cool, man, and thank you all for coming. And Nick, if we could go to the tweet that really kicked this all off, that would be great, because I'd like to start this by saying that. Let's see, did I lose y'all?
No, we're still here.
There we are. Yeah. So I'd like to kick this off by saying that I'm a huge Stacks fan, and if you're new to the ecosystem, even if you've been in the ecosystem for a while, it's a lot more complex than I was expecting. Is someone who just has been kind of like a trader, degen. Stacks has just massive amounts of resources that they put to work that do a lot of good. I mean, there's, Gary was in the startup accelerator. They have all of these governance protocols and proposals, and all of these people working behind the scenes. They have free clarity training. My little buddy John's watching right now. You've got all these people, in other parts of the country, parts of the world, excuse me, some of these places in developing economies where you have young people learning how to code just for free. um and that's really just the tip of the iceberg, and Stacks really does do a lot of good, and I'm very excited when I see things like that, because what we're all trying to build here is a more fair world, and we're trying to increase opportunity. That's one of the things about Bitcoin, about crypto in general. It really gives people opportunity where there was none before, and hats off. Stacks is a fantastic place. I encourage you to learn as much as you can. And as you all know, most of you watching know, I've been writing on Sigle for about a year now, and I saw this tweet. I was like, whoa. I was like, this is strange. This is a app. This is a project with a fully working application. This is a team that runs lean. They produce. I remember when I first went to Stacks, when I downloaded my Hero wallet, when it was time to really get started, I was brought to this page that kind of served as a directory of all of these different things that they have going on in Stacks. And I mean, that's how I found Gamma, right? Like I found Gamma that way. And I don't think that especially if you go and you read this tweet, I don't think that this is intentional or anything like that, where you have, some projects that are established, been here a long time, and not getting any recommendation, although it does serve to make these things a little harder for someone in the ecosystem to see what's going on. So there could be an unfair advantage. And I love Gary, by the way. He's a very, very smart man, and he's always like speaking up for the little guy. Like Gary is very just like, hey, if I don't think that's right, I'm gonna tell you why, right? And he picked up on that, and I was like, this is a good conversation, because it is hard in this space where things not only just change at a rapid pace, evolve at a rapid pace, but when you're starting out, especially to have any focus on what you're building on your product is extraordinarily difficult. And so I thought, man, this would be a great discussion, because the people at Stacks, who are doing all their various things, they're not, it's decentralized, right? There is no, hey, send so and so an email and let's get this little bit of PR out about this project. So I thought this would be a good opportunity for us to see, how do small projects or developing projects or finished projects, how do we get eyes on them? How do we make sure that people are learning about what people are working on? And so yeah, so we have a couple of OGs here. We have Gary, we have Jim, and I was like, let me bring Alex on, man. He's pretty new to all this, so I think he'd offer some fresh perspective. So Gary, let's go ahead back with you. Like, let's go back to this tweet and speak about your experience in this regard.
Yeah, and I thank you, and I think everything you said is spot on. I mean, I wouldn't be here if I wasn't a fan of Stacks, and if I wasn't supporting Stacks and supporting all of you, and everyone in Stacks. I do think that it's so difficult to thread this needle, because at the end of the day, it's supply and demand. It's it's a dog eat dog world. You sort of get to the top, and at the same time, you have a lot of people in the game, and so everyone's got their own interests. And so I don't mind that, right? Like competition is good, competition is healthy. What I do mind, and I think this is sort of what, irks me, is like the double standard of, well, the rising tide lifts all boats, but let's not really worry about the little boats kind of thing, because we're the big boat. And so I think, it's bureaucracy, it's politics, it's where the money is. And I mean it. I mean this within stacks. So there's nothing surprising, but I think, as you could see, people are hurting because people are putting their blood, sweat, and tears into this. Some people are, potentially not accepting other gigs. Some people have family situations, whatever the situations are that puts them in the dynamic of where they are. I think when you contest that with the bullhorn that Stacks has, I just find it a little bit unfortunate that we're just focusing on the, top 1%, top 5%, whatever you want to call it, because there's a lot of brilliant people out there. And if you go with this ethos of can't be evil, can't do evil, etc., you sort of have to back all that up. And, I'm, as you said, I'm a little bit sort of, hey, like, let's keep pushing this thing. And I'll bring something up. I was reviewing an email the other day. It was sort of like a recap of Stacks, and they were talking about some events in the city. And I'm not going to name the specifics, but there was an event that Ala, who's one of our co-founders, literally put together, found the person, set up the Stacks thing, the blah blah blah, and then it's like event hosted by, and then it was like a few names, and Haylayer got nothing. And so, those are the things that frankly bother me. I don't have another word for it, because I do want everyone to get their fair share. And I know people are working really hard. And so, I'll just start there. I don't have the answer, but I actually think doing this is like part of the answer, right? Like getting us together and having these conversations, because we're all in it, together. So
no, agreed. And Jim, let's hear your take, man.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Just in terms of, we've had a couple of meetings before, Gary and myself, and we also did at one point sort of take some of the sort of central people, we sort of held them to task a bit. We had a conversation, but it is a very, very difficult thing to figure out. It's not, I just can't put words in other people's mouths. We may have our ideas of how things should be done. We feel like we've dedicated a lot of loyalty and time and to promoting something, but I can't necessarily say that my intent from the beginning was to get to this situation. I think I was promoting I just think that this was the mechanics of all of crypto. It kind of comes down to this process of finding a way to have a smart layer on top of Bitcoin that actually pays its participants in Bitcoin. That's one of the big things that I think, amongst all the other craziness going on, that we sometimes forget, is that this, if only this had been the way that Bitcoin was built in the beginning, we would have never had the whole thing with Ethereum. We would have, if anything, the hardcore Bitcoiners would have said it's your duty to pay your 1% to fund the smart network on Bitcoin, and people would just accept Bitcoin. Everyone is mining Bitcoin, and that's kind of how it should be, is that everyone's Bitcoin should be mining this smart layer. But we've sort of got a battle on our hands now because of all the tribalism that formed over the years. But, other than asking for money from places where we feel maybe it should come, and not having sales on the other end of that, the best thing we can do is create communities that not only support each other, but also hopefully between us become more efficient in producing platforms and user journeys that just offer more. I mean, I did say to people quite a while ago that there is this one side of business which is raising money and impressing people and doing it, and then there's the other side which is just really concentrating on a product that actually serves people and gives them what they want doesn't have to have loads of money poured into it. It's just got to be good, and people will pay for that. People will pay if you give them a service that's good enough. And we have seen it with some of these some platforms that exist. There's a couple of platforms I can think of where I pay a bit more to use that platform because I know that my transaction is going to go through quickly, or things like that. And so, just by offering good services, but then also streamlining what we're doing. I love the idea. I saw Gary's tweet yesterday about servicing some news and bringing Sigle in, and there was just a very short list of what's coming in right now. But this is the beginning of how it should be, and that there is something forming that we can all help with, which doesn't. It kills the user journey. The more we dilute the journey by trying to grab our own customers, so they just see this one side of what we're doing, actually the less of a good experience it is. And it's far greater to bring someone into Stacks that by the end of their first hour, they know more than one company. They know more than one project. They know more than just NFTs. That there is some sort of user journey that brings a user in, educates them. Because we all have our businesses here, but my mission still is to try and educate people in a way that 10 years down the line is going to be really, even if they don't thank me for it, it will have done them some good, because they came this way, whether they knew it was the right thing or not. In the end, I know that this is the right place to be. This is the right way to work with Bitcoin. Mining with Bitcoin it just seems to me to be the perfect answer. And we do have this situation now where other chains are coming up. They've now seen Stacks. They understand, okay, I had this conversation with someone 2 years ago on Hedera, some Hedera prophet, he's just completing the Hedera. But I was saying, the only thing you're missing is kind of, just basically just finalizing your ledger to Bitcoin. And some of these, they can kind of get that. Stacks did this thing by raising money to do it through a private sale. It slowed things down, but it was doing things the right way. There's no SEC, noose potentially hanging over us. But now, this is kind of almost sound like the devil's advocate, but this is where I understand in some ways that some people with the money might be saying focus on these core products. Because I was just saying to the number one guys earlier, we're close. We're 6, 9 months, 12 months away from suddenly having SBTC and subnets, which I just saw an email about yesterday with Hero, which means that we have, as an NFT marketplace, we might suddenly have the ability to mint 1 million NFTs in a day. Say we wanted to, some of these big artists we work with who we've said we can't do your albums, we don't, there's no way we can facilitate that. Suddenly we can, and they're able to buy it with Bitcoin. So we enter the biggest market in the world, and suddenly we have this super efficient system where we could literally put out like a platinum selling album and sell them all in a day. It's kind of coming. And so it's like, I kind of get that there is a big benefit to us hurrying with this, because in terms of core functionality, because there are other competitors now who are trying to offer products, which is only going to further this mess, because their customers might get a really good service and might feel like it's doing it the right way, but it's still one step away from an actual Bitcoin layer 2. And so the quicker we can provide the really good functioning Bitcoin layer 2, but that includes all of this. It includes the user journey, the services, the seeing the benefits. If you're not into NFTs or DeFi, if you're just a Bitcoin saver, why is this the right place for you to be? Why should you be using DeFi on Stacks rather than anywhere else? All these things.
You bring up some good points, and I want to get back to them. And Alex, real quick, as someone who is a very recent entrant into Stacks, to speak to kind of Jim's point and even my earlier point of like, there's a lot of layers here that when you first come around, you aren't necessarily aware of. So I just wanted to get like your perspective, like what was it coming into Stacks? How do you like conceive of it as not just a blockchain or a network, but as an actual Web3, let's call it Web3 product or ecosystem? Because really, when we talk about Web3, even though I'm not the biggest fan of the word itself, it does demonstrate that there is a difference between how you use the internet now and how you're going to use it in the future. And, you know, part of that picture is community, you know, part of that picture is commerce, part of that picture is the underlying tech. So with all of that in mind, just what was your experience like and right now and how you just perceive all of this as a newer entrant?
Yeah, definitely. I've been learning new things every day about stacks. Always come across something new, and it's really cool to see. So I mean, stacks kind of. I haven't done anything Web3 related until I found stacks, because I've never been a fan of Ethereum, because I hate gas fees.
Same, brother. Preach.
Yeah. And I think stacks is really cool because it enables DeFi on Bitcoin, which, you know, is not possible otherwise. I mean, it is, but with stacks, you know, stacks makes that possible. And so I think it's really cool exploring the whole ecosystem. One of the first things I came across was Gamma, you know, which is the NFT marketplace, the Bitcoin NFT marketplace. I also found Console, which is super cool. It's like Web3 Discord. And I guess, yeah, so I have been learning about Web3 and, you know, from the start from stacks. And I guess it's really cool because it kind of allows you to own your content on the web, truly.
Right.
I read this thing. It's like a short little thing. It was like a tweet. Someone said Web 1 is like read, Web 2 is read and write, and then Web 3 is read, write, and own. I think that's kind of a good analogy to describe that.
Let me ask you a question. This I'm quite curious. Like, but before coming on this morning, did you know anything about something like, say, the Stacks Accelerator, which, you know, helps people who are entrepreneurs, you know, develop their ideas, find teammates, and go to market? Did you know that was a thing in the Stacks ecosystem?
No, not till you just mentioned it just now.
How about like Stacks advocates, for instance, where, you know, I was an advocate. Gary, I believe you were as well.
Not officially, but always.
Right. And like, you know, or you know, so I think that speaks to your point, Jim, that okay, so let's stop right here and say maybe it's good to have, you know, the people who are who kind of have the most resources, that they're focusing on, you know, just pushing product, staying ahead of the curve in this highly competitive market. And so it's up to us, right? It's up to us because we can demonstrate, you know, we've got Alex here who's been in probably 6 weeks, 8 weeks, you know, developed his own project. He's technically sound. He's got his fundamentals, you know, he's got his priorities right. And even as a new community member, a new a builder, right? He sees, you know, 1% of the pie. So what do we do? Because I think clearly this demonstrates that the onus is on us, right? I think that we have to operate under that assumption that, okay, well, what do we as a community do? What does the community need? Clearly, we've identified we need a better, you know, whether you want to call it an onboarding experience or, you know, some kind of way to kind of have the news all in one place, like a good resource. You know, sort of like what Flagship does, right? I mean, what's our Flagship answer here? What do you think, Gary?
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it. There's a couple of things that are happening, and that's so the one thing I want to say is I don't think that things are not being done. I think in the sense that, like, you know, I think we're being heard, whether it's one way or another, maybe indirectly. But like what I found, you know, I think things like the working groups, for example, have been, you know, for me, very helpful because it just demonstrates that as an individual, you can come in, find a thing that you like. And again, this is another thing that, you know, maybe Alex, you know, or you don't know, but this is fairly new. where it's sort of like, hey, join a couple of people, get together and focus on making something better within the ecosystem. And I think that's really good. And so like I'm trying to when I can, like it's hard with the schedules, right? But and then what I'm doing now is I'm sort of feeling out a bunch of these working groups. I'm joining when I can, and then ultimately I'm kind of like, well, where do I feel like I've got the most flow with? What's the group that I really enjoy being around? Where can I participate? But that idea is great. I think whoever came up with that is brilliant. The issue also is I think we have a little bit of sort of like this. I don't know what the dichotomy, whatever you want to call it, is, yes, Bitcoin, we are early, and the majority of people, are coming in because they Googled Bitcoin smart contracts. Like these are not normal things to actually Google, smart contracts on Bitcoin, etc. And so, like me, I'm not really hanging around the heavy Bitcoin folks. And so for me, I need a way to be like, hey, you're a normie, come on in and you'll feel good too. And for that person, GitHub and Discord is not the answer.
No, you're 100%.
That's the other. So like, this is where I'll just pass it on. But yesterday we had a working group that just started, the NFT Creators Guild. I think it's being led by someone fairly new who's an NFT creator. So I really love the fact that it's sort of grassroots up. And what they decided, based on just the combo we all had, was a couple things. One is create, and this is all still being discussed, create a buddy system, which I think is great, like a mentorship system. So it's like, you're new to Stacks. Well, maybe we can get you with Jack, maybe we can get you with Jim, who have experience and all these things that exist. And the other thing is like an onboarding checklist, which I think goes back to like literally what you just said, is like, what are all the things you can do to sort of like get yourself up to speed? And the last thing I'll say is that, going back, because I want the amplification thing is important to me, because if you're Alex here and you're building, which I think those NFTs are super cool. Yeah. Dynamic is generally with Stacks, we don't know who omelet.btc is. These are cool, but we should be weary. How do we get to know Omelet more? Does he care about Stacks? Does he participate in the way like we expect him to participate? And I'm not sure like that's good enough, because Alex may not know how to participate in the way that the people that are looking want him to participate. So how is he supposed to? So what I'm trying to do, what I do when I get sort of like offensive, is I pluck out the people that are not getting that hype. And I'm sort of like, I like what you're doing, or let me hear more about this, because that's the problem with sort of just betting on a few big ships, is you're going to drown out everyone else that's trying to come on. So they get a bad taste in their mouth, because it's sort of like, okay, I guess I don't matter. So that's like the difficulty here, So yeah, so I am kind of a fan of like these working groups. I just feel like I just wish they were a little bit more reachable to sort of all the new, and maybe like having these discussions is like the way to go, right? To let people know.
Yeah, I agree with you about the Discord and the GitHub. And it was when you're a crypto native, the way that you typically navigate these things, different ecosystems, different projects, and so forth, have been through crypto Twitter. I know Reddit has a crypto community. You navigate them through Telegrams for the longest time, Discords, all these different things. But someone brand new, and I think back to 2017, that's all I had was Twitter, right? Like that was it. Like I didn't know about the Telegrams, I didn't know about the Discords. There were 3 coins on Coinbase and like these other exchanges where everything else was. And so all of this is a really convoluted process, and I'm sure it's not the exact same now, but it definitely does speak to having some sort of product or infrastructure or protocol or something that can serve as a, for lack of a better term, communications hub, right? or directory or so forth. And I think when we had that talk with Ragnar and the guys from Zero Authority on this last Saturday, so much of what you were speaking to, Gary, about, well, how do we know Omelet BTC is a good actor? We have people work on a reputation. I think that's something that's going to go huge in and of itself. And so we need to definitely look at beefing up that part of things. Because in my opinion, there's a few things that are really need to be solved to really facilitate mass adoption. And one part of those things is people are scared of buying the wrong thing and getting ripped off. So I think part of that is reputation, and then the simplification, which I used to be a lot bigger proponent of, like, man, sending these funds through wallets and all this. This is kind of complex stuff for your average person. But recently I was thinking about it, and it's really not. I mean, I remember when I had to learn how to send email. I remember when, like, passwords became something that I actually used other than to save a video game or, have a code to open my locker at the gym, right? I mean, all of these things, we really did and can do this. We're just so used to it, we don't tend to think about what a culture shock that was.
I think with a lot of those things, because things like the email, you didn't get sold email before you wanted email. And I think that's one of the things. You've got to end the speculative stuff. It's like when we're offering stuff, when this user journey is familiar. When Dash and I first imported this ATM, we went to a lot of extra expense to import specifically one that it was the first two-way. So everything else up until then, they were like iPads and things, that you could it was a bit of a gimmick. And we're like, this is a big deal. We want it to look like an actual bank machine. We want familiarity to be the thing that actually sort of precedes the interest in, using it. It's like, and I think it's similar with this. If we're bringing, normies, I think as you said, it's like there needs to be an element of familiarity and something in it other than speculation. It's not just trying to say this is going to make you money or whatever. It's like, here's something that you want to do or you need to do, and it looks, we're not trying. It's not sold as crypto or Web3 or anything. It's just a simple utility wrapped up in a nice, nice looking way that will sort of get people using this stuff.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that when you go to, this is number one, when you go to your website and you immediately know what you all are doing, what you're about, right? I mean, you go there, you're like, okay, so this is curated NFT collections. This is art by famous artists being available, and you could see the previous collections, you can see what's coming up. That is awesome. I think you hit that part perfectly. I think the part we need to get is to, how do we find this is number one in the first place? How do we find Halo in the first place?
Collaborative link that everyone could maybe have between sites was one other idea, was to have some sort of, I mean, initially it was a Discord idea, but I do agree that we've got to get away from that. It's got to be more easily accessible just through desktop. But if we were to set up some sort of a cooperative, I've been talking to these, I've forgotten their name now, but they're helping set up, the sort of the tool for setting up decentralized voting, all that sort of stuff. And so we've been talking to them about, how could we kind of tie a lot of the projects together where there's some sort of, even like a page that every website has or something like that is all automatically updated. It's the same on every page. We were talking about you, Jack, as well, and about how, just something that is kind of streamlined, but it's updated, but we all agree to provide the same page or something along those lines, where there is a very literal sort of core which we're all building around, and everyone sort of whether it's through cheating it like that, like everyone just having a similar page, or whether there is a central place, but at least giving that feeling of community and feeling like you can keep going back to this page. It's the same, whichever site you go to, there's this one particular thing that is the same everywhere, and it links to everybody. I'm not techie. It's like an idea, you know, but it's just, I'm just trying to think of the mechanics and the structure that we kind of really want to make people feel like they are in a network and not wandering around all these dotted projects, you know. To know our relationship, to know our histories between us as well would be, I think, and just a nice, secure, comforting sensation for people coming into a new space like this. So yeah.
No, I think you're right, man. I think that you're onto something with that idea, because if you do have a lot of projects that are their almost their own sort of community network together anyway, that say at the very least, okay,
everyone has to be selfish in that way as well. But how do we combine the two, you know?
Right. We share the same values. You know, if you're in this network, this is reputable folks. You know, we don't have our reputation badges yet, right? But here's a network of people who share values. You know, everyone's on the up and up here. I think that is baseline good, and have that support, because then also, like you said, you're not fracturing the community amongst, you know, dotted projects, right? I think obviously, I mean, this is how I think. I think obviously media is a big part of that. I think having, you know, the newsletters, I've been a huge advocate, fan, and for the idea of alternative media now for a while. And I think having publications that deal strictly with, you know, crypto, Web3, the art, all of these things in general, because like it or not, this is a subculture. We are a subculture. We believe that there's a better way of doing things. That's why we're all here in the first place. And so having like these different cultural representatives in terms of these communities, it does line up with like a lot of the thinkers in the space, and how they see things going forward, you know, with network states and these sorts of things. I think there's a lot to that. Gary, what do you at Hey Layer right now? How do you see Hey Layer fitting into that? And you know, I remember at one point, in you know, I know y'all changed focus a little bit. At one point, you were also like, you know, we want to be a place where if people are trying to figure out what this Web3 stuff is all about, we're going to help them, right? We're going to like give them the tools and the education they need. So real quick, you know, as we go in to the end of the show, can y'all just give us some updates on what you're working on, what's going on? And we'll start with you, Gary.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, you know, I have this vision, and it sort of encompasses a lot of what you guys are saying. And, you know, to create a hub that you can sort of go to it's got to evolve a lot from where it is today. And that's why I'm not, you know, shouting from the rooftops, because I love to sort of believe in something before I go crazy with it. But we're going to get there. You know, we're going to be implementing smart contracts into the flow. And for me, it's kind of what you said. It's sort of like, well, if I go somewhere and I can read up on a couple of things, have a couple of conversations, but also maybe start a flow. So if I'm a newbie and I say, hey, start here. And so like the MVP right now is we have start here, and it sort of recommends a couple of things you can do based on your interests, right? So it'll say, hey, check out this or check out this. But the idea is to actually say, hey, step one, and you could skip the steps, but why not set up a BNS name, right? So that you can be someone within the network. Step two, get your wallet. And within that process, we're not only integrating the smart contracts, but we're also leading people to check out all of the different partners and stacks. You know, want something super unique, or want, you know, go to This Is Number One. I mean, you know, This Is Number One is actually, the way I frame them is like one of the dogs in this fight, because, you know, like literally first, from what I understand, and always trying to make something happen. And so like, it's a great project, a great example of a project that more people should know about. And so how do we curate that list? How do we create that app store dynamic? And I know everyone's working on it. And so that, I'm not going to, devalue anyone's work. Like Ragnar with Reputation, I think, is a brilliant idea. So, it looks like we're all kind of working on our stuff. And then hopefully we'll begin to bring things together as clarity becomes also not the language, but in general, like all of our understanding of like where we fit into the puzzle becomes more, clear. And I think that's happening. So, yeah. So I think, I just kind of re-upped on my knowledge of smart contracts. I had a smart contract engineer doing most of the work, but I wanted to roll up my sleeves and say, hey, how do I get in and just like inject some change and make things happen? So, over the next couple of months, we will be rolling out all these things and hopefully working with everybody here, because I think, the idea is, yeah, let's figure out how to grow together, but also not forget, what got us here kind of thing, and all the little people.
What I think, Gary, before we go to you, Jim, and first of all, I agree about this is number one in terms of, the community, the scope of the project. I'm a huge fan of the team. And when we talk about, to sum up what we're looking at, it almost seems as though what we're really talking about is a DAO of sorts, like a creator's DAO. And then, so my next thought is, within that DAO, like any other DAO, you can have different agency, different, projects that are people working on. But, if you're taking someone who's new and you have an allocation of tokens or what have you in the DAO, that's how you incentivize the brand new user, right? We say, okay, we have 10% of our treasury is for people who go through this onboarding experience that you're talking about building out, right? And I think the solution is probably somewhere there. I feel like, in my experience with crypto, you come in and like, oh, here's all of these tokens. What's a token? I don't know, but everyone's getting rich and I'm not. So I'm gonna get these tokens. And it turns out most of them are vaporware, right? And then you start hearing about DeFi. Is what's a tendy? I have no idea what a tendy is, but I want as many as I can because I want to be rich. But and then NFTs, and we see all these things, and a trap we fall into is like, okay, that's what that is, and it's all kind of stupid. But really what it is the first iterations of early adopters, and all of these things evolve. And we see that with DeFi. DeFi, some right out the gate were winners, and they established the models that do it right. But since then, there's been so much work and evolution in trying to sort this out, right? And same thing with NFTs. So you start with PFPs, and then you go into something like narcotics, right? And I'm putting you on the spot, Jim, because when I finish this, I'm writing a piece about the Stacks monthly updates for Flagship. So I actually got a sneak peek of some stuff I'm gonna put in the article today. So why don't y'all tell us a little bit about what y'all have going on? This is number one right now, because it does speak to that point of this evolution of the technology and what it can be.
Yeah, I mean, I guess our latest project is it's a bit of a passion project, because everything that number one has done up until now has all been working with other artists, bringing other artists into the space, either artists that we feel should be in the space or artists that we feel might benefit the space through their own profiles. So this narcotics project is a passion project of our own, and the idea is really to build something that was almost in itself a seed for ideas, both creative and technological. Weirdly, AI has really had a singularity of sorts since we started this project, which is about a future AI, which is it's an imaginary future world where we have actually migrated into the metaverse, which has actually been sort of cleansed to the point where now the human condition is one of no experience. It's just a sterile existence. And so now this AI is actually the benevolent force here, which is actually trying to return the human condition by dealing these crazy digital drugs that create sometimes very normal human experiences. It's sort of flipping the whole thing on its head. The idea of getting high is just to experience something real, falling over a banana peel or having an argument or feeling upset at someone, all these different things we've put in. So the idea is that we've created the collection. It's also all in partnership with Chemical X. We've partnered with him, so it's something we're all doing together as a team. And what's going to get really interesting is that all of these, there's 3,333 unique effects and side effects, which we had someone actually physically writing them, which was just the AI came along in the middle of this, but we'd made this plan months before, and so we just carried on through. So it's been a really beautiful process. But there is all of these things actually generate. They yield compounds, and then those compounds can be used to make future collections, kind of in collaboration with Chemical X. So Chemical X has provided. So as you're yielding these compounds, you sort of get to points where Chemical X has created all these additional layers. You can then create your own versions for the next. So you will become the owner and creator, and it's a collaborative work. And so I think there'll only be 1,000 possible that can be made in the first round when you start mixing and matching your compounds. It's been an intense job, and there's been a few delays, but we've just wanted to get it really perfect. And the website is really nice experience. Everyone has their own kind of laboratory, so you can see what you've got and what you can mix and match, and then eventually what you can actually build with this, and whether you want to build now or do you want to keep earning and yielding to get to these better designs where Chemical X has made. The deeper the designs go, you're like, oh, I really want to have all of those together. So it's a really incentive mechanism. There's a Web3 and a Web2 element. Going back to some of the things people were saying earlier, Web3 is obviously where we all want to exist, but Web2 elements have their uses. A little bit like I'm talking about this idea of printing 1 million NFTs. If we were to mint 1 million NFTs in a day, that's going to involve some Web2 trust stuff, because that's going to be saying, okay, we've created a subnet. We're good for our word. We're going to make sure that all these million go out, but it's very much it's us. It's our centralized network that you're trusting for that day to mint those 1 million NFTs. So its use is there, because then all those users, they can get it very quickly. They trust us. They know that it's there, and then all they've got to do is just do a transaction to put it onto Stacks or onto Bitcoin. 10 minutes later, it's exactly where they want it. But there is that to get that speed. Security and speed, they're like kind of two opposing forces. So you can't improve one without reducing the other effectively. So
that's really cool. And it's cool because so much of the talk right now has been between ordinals and NFTs, and this is a project right here that you can say, okay, if you want to know the difference between an ordinal and NFT, look at narcotics. Look at what's going on right here. And that speaks to the point of the evolution of the technologies. So Alex, I'm gonna pass this question to you. If there was a DAO, right? If there was that kind of thing, because we've already accepted that tokens have changed, NFTs have changed, the narratives around these things change, they develop, they become stronger, they become more focused, and we say, okay, the DAO is an idea whose time has come. This is going to be a foundation of things that are more important than we understand coming into the ecosystem. If someone who's like, hey, I'm going to create this NFT collection with ordinal inscriptions, I should probably join that creator DAO that Hay Layers in and Narcotics is in, and the Guest, and all of these different things, right? Is someone new, would that be something that you think would be like, okay, this seems like a pretty smart thing for me to do, let me go check that out?
We
can't. Yeah, we
Am I
can't
good
hear
now?
you.
Yeah.
Okay. It's funny that you mentioned that because I think after the first couple of days I launched my project, I thought it would be a pretty cool idea to create a DAO that would onboard artists who have ever done anything in crypto before, and kind of get them a new avenue to get their art out there and, potentially get it sold as well. So I think that's a fantastic idea. And that's something I've been thinking about for a while now, actually. And Gary, I checked out HeyLayer, and I think that's super cool what you guys are doing over there. I think that's kind of a prime example of where I was thinking, things should be going. So also, Jim, I minted in narcotics. I thought they looked pretty cool. I didn't realize that you could create more art with them. So that's good to know.
There's a lot coming. I mean, we haven't put that part of the site out. I think within a couple of weeks, there's 3 or 4 phases, but the first phase will open up next week, I think. So yeah, it's going to be exciting. But I'm really looking forward to having a play with your collection as well. And we should talk more about this sort of stuff, because this is our big focus at Number One, is all about creating a frictionless onboarding experience for new artists. That's our main thing, is bringing content. We're not necessarily trying to bring users; they will come. But we want to bring content. We're about to put out a compilation album. We've got 11 separate bands, all with their own followings, all who've not done anything in crypto before, are doing we're doing an exclusive compilation album. So we're all about that process of bringing people in. The faster we can grow the community of creators, the rest will fall into place.
So awesome. Gary, what do you think about this? I think that we came here with a question, and I think we came here with something that at least right now seems like a potential solution. At the very least, it seems like something that should be further explored and fleshed out.
Yeah, I think like we're on the right track. I think these conversations are super, because it also creates the transparency, right, of laying it all out there and showing what each one of us is doing, and what we aspire to do, where we're not just sort of like the keyboard warriors, right, that we actually have passions and this idea of like bringing this all together. So as someone that was like, hey, this GitHub thing is confusing, I did mention that working group that I was just in the other day, NFT, they just had their first meeting. And my main concern is, so I love the idea, like DAO and NFT. So I'm all in there. My main thing is, I don't want to split the pie even more. So it's like, how do we bring the people that are already trying to do this? So maybe the job is like, let's amplify what we're trying to do, get the people that are sort of like already kind of doing this kind of thing, but doing it, and then seeing where the level playing field is, so we can all, do it right and do it together. The last thing I'll say is, if we can create a mechanism like on HeyLayer kind of thing, where it's like, if you try this and if you try this, then you also benefit. Like one of the early ideas we had, which we haven't done, I know we're running out of time, but it's sort of like the affiliate program. So if I leave HeyLayer and if I buy something, so I don't, where we can extract value back, whether it's like,
it's creating an economy of that stuff. Yeah, that's what
an affiliate, right? So then now the HeyLayer user has some like couple of sats in his account, just because he bought the psychedelic, which those things are super cool, and even what Alex is putting together. So it's like, how do we create the cyclical economy too? But I'm all in, like anything that'll help.
Yeah, I think it's worthy, and I think it's got a lot of potential. And I think there's conversations we should be having. To the viewer, I issue this as a challenge to think about it. Give us feedback. Give any of us feedback. I think that this this sort of thing needs to happen. And whatever its ultimate form looks like is secondary to what it accomplishes, right? So I think that we want to win, we want to succeed, and there's a lot of good people in this space. The Sachs community is by far the best community in crypto. Period. There's head and shoulders above everyone else. Sorry, not sorry. As we're getting ready to log off here and say goodbye, any final words from the guests? Jim, what you got?
I had something in my mind then, and it's just completely gone. But it was something along the lines of what Gary was saying, about just figuring out how to form this network of without forcing anyone anywhere. Just create something that's just efficient, that we can all look and go, okay, look, they're doing that. Like some of the stuff that HeyLayer have been doing is this cool stuff with QR codes and things. And it's like, we should be looking to each other and going, okay, we'd love to do this in our project. What can we do for you? Can we use some of your technology and you use some of ours? And then, but that all ties into this idea of having, we just recently launched a loyalty point, which about, Jack. Anyone who mints earns a loyalty point, but we don't. It's a great incentive mechanism for people to come back and use our platform, but we would definitely like to find a way to make that kind of interchangeable, whether it's a loyalty point that is a global loyalty point, or whether we find a way to go, okay, everyone, let's all have loyalty points, and they all come into this central marketplace where, someone can build up their loyalty points on Hay Layer, but then this one mint comes along that they've got to do on number one, and they can actually use their Hay Layer points on number one. It's probably quite a complex system, but certainly something we can start thinking about now, because we'd love that. We'd love to have that thing where we're not just tying people into our product. If next week the thing that really excites our customers is on Hay Layer, then what better way than for the work they've put in with us to actually still be expendable, over there. And that obviously involves processes between everybody, but I'm sure we can make that happen, that people just get paid for participation in the network, not just
cool
individual platforms.
Well, Alex, as the new guy, we're gonna end with you. You got anything you want to sign off with?
Oh, first, it's been a pleasure being on the show. Thanks for having me. I think we're early. I think we got a lot of good builders out there. I think they need time to build, but I'm bullish on the future of stacks and crypto in general. Just got to give it
100%.
Amen.
That is perfect. And we'll go ahead and end there. Thank you everybody for watching. Spread the word, share this. We're trying to build something really cool here. And thank you, Gary. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Alex, for coming on. I always enjoy talking to you all. That's the most fun part of my little part of what I do in the ecosystem. So thank you all. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again on Saturday.
Thank you.